So obviously obesity is an issue in the US. If you look back at weight loss drugs that have been approved over time, they have not been effective. They're peptides, just like insulin was the first peptide on the market, and that's used for diabetes. And it's a shock. Again, peptides are not absorbed well orally and don't work well orally. And insulin just being an example of that. It's still an injectable product. When you are regulating blood sugar, your metabolism is optimized, that you actually have more energy for sex and a better sex drive. So I've had more people talk about that.
I think it is a good part of the chatter online is the reduction in inflammation we're seeing with the GLP-1s. So when we reduce inflammation, our mood, our energy, our sexual function, everything gets a little bit better when we are functioning at our fullest potential.
Are GLP-1s killing your libido or sex drive? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's Dr. Durst, and welcome back to the channel. I have my co-host with me.
Hey guys, Faraday Golombieski, family nurse practitioner here at Revitalize MD.
All right, so today we're going to talk about it. Apparently, the myths on social media, or what's been on social media, is that GLP-1s, such as Semaglutide, Tirzepatide,
Ozempic, Wegovy.
yes, that those are killing your drive or desire for anything and everything. And so we're going to talk about
sex.
Yeah, including sex. So not something that we've seen, but let's dive into what we found and what we're seeing in practice at the end. We'll share all of that with you. So anyhow, GLP-1. So what are they? First off,
So they work on appetite suppression and insulin regulation. So that's it in a nutshell, right? They lower appetite for and help with insulin regulation to help with weight loss.
and I think that these came to market. If you look back, so obviously obesity is an issue in the US. And so if you look back at weight loss drugs that have been approved over time, they have not been effective. Or they're used, but they have a lot of side effects, or you gain the weight back. So GLP-1s hit the market and are highly effective. Still, again, having issues and with maybe people losing too much, with
Too
adverse
quick.
effects too quickly, or again, is it not the right agent? Is it not being monitored correctly? So that's what we're going to dive into. This is a peptide. They're peptides, just like insulin was the first peptide on the market, and that's used for diabetes. And it's a shock because frequently, again, peptides are not absorbed well orally and don't work well orally, and insulin just being an example of that. It's still an injectable product. So these are amino acid sequences, peptides that mimic something in the body, and GLP-1, and then Tirzepatide has another agent in it, and then there's even like a tri-agent that's being evaluated right now for market. So they help, like Faraday said, regulate blood sugar and with weight loss, appetite control, weight loss. And so that they've been effective, highly effective,
Absolutely.
obviously.
And they are extremely effective in with the ability to come off of them without rapid weight gain when done appropriately.
So I think that you will see a lot of chatter on the internet. Chatter, noise is what I call it, because I think no matter what, and we'll talk about that at the end, that I think you need to find a provider that specializes in peptides and can dose them correctly with you, doing other things as well and not just using a peptide. But if you go to one-off clinics that are, throwing semaglutide or tirzepatide, or you go to a primary doctor that does it, you may not get the monitoring, you may not get the lifestyle stuff that they talk to you that are also necessary for a permanent weight loss, weight reduction, change in body composition. That's a slow game.
Yep. Or even just being successful on these medications. So you can get on these medications and have all these negative side effects, or maybe have a loss in libido, or maybe have hair loss, or have all these different negative side effects that are potentially preventable if you're treating and optimizing everything the body needs, not just giving a drug and sending you out the door.
Correct. So peptides, again, amino acid sequences mimic something in the body. GLP-1s, as a general category, is the one that we're going to talk about today, the category we're going to talk about. The peptides in that category would be, again, Tirzepatide, which is Wegovy, and then Semaglutide, which is
Ozempic.
So those
Essentially.
those are the two big ones, and so you can hear either Tirzepatide and Semaglutide as generic names for that, or Wegovy
Name
and
brands.
Ozempic as brand names. And so they are injectable once a week, but what you inject, the amounts are highly variable and patient specific. And so when they've been compounded, you can do that adjustment a little easier than just with the conventional products. And so that's why a lot of patients have turned to, and a lot of providers have tried to turn to these in compounded products because they can adjust better. But then again, there's, a lot of noise out there, maybe even not noise, but FDA back and forth flux with whether those are available from a compounded source. So what they do is appetite suppression. But you don't want it so low that you can't take anything in. So when we're talking about libido, it sounds like low libido. What are some of the causes? What are some of the reasons that you would state for why these agents might cause a low libido?
So if you are taking an extremely low calorie intake in, right? So when your body doesn't have enough fuel to maintain its state just sitting here, that definitely can be reflected in libido, because if we're too tired to go do anything, libido is probably the last thing on your list. You've got everything else going on. So maybe that would be a reason.
Okay, yeah. And I think that if there's a fat reduction, again, cholesterol,
Yes.
and hormones come from cholesterol. And so if you reduce the fat maybe too quickly, it does potentially affect your hormone
Or to an
regulation.
underweight.
Yes, or if you were underweight or your body composition is not right for that. And so muscle loss would be another potential reason why. Again, that is just kind of goes along with body image and even hormone production when you have more muscle
Yeah.
formation. And then,
Or even rapid weight loss, right? That causes stress on the body.
yes, yeah.
If we're losing way too quickly or inappropriately. When you see online, right, for a long time there was the Ozempic face, right? This
Yes, yeah.
rapid loss of fat and weight that just seemed excessive from too high of dosing, inappropriate education with these peptides. So I could see that stress response having
Correct.
an effect.
And at the end, we will talk a little bit more about like our view in practice of these agents and which ones and what the benefits
then what
of
we
one
actually
versus
see.
the other. Yes, and what we're seeing. But I will say that some of these have dopamine blunting effects, and I would think that also at higher doses because, then they just don't have the desire for anything. And I do know that people are talking about that. Again, not something that we're seeing in practice.
No.
I have not seen that. Have you?
I think if I see anything like that, I see a reduction in alcohol intake and I see a reduction in sweets. But those are not bad
Correct.
dopamine blunting effects.
Yes, yeah, and I would agree. I have not heard anyone say that they just don't have a desire for anything. But again, hormones are the core. So if we're
Yes.
optimizing hormones, a lot of that zest for life is already optimized in that. And so we look as peptides as next level optimization.
Yeah.
So that if you have hormones that need to be optimized, because that's not only helping with quality of life, but it's also preventative, we're addressing that first, peptides being next level. So perhaps that's in patients that aren't optimized hormonally as well. That's a
That could
possibility.
be. And some of these things, if we're reducing calorie intake, we can be reducing our testosterone levels.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So cases why it would improve your libido. So the opposite, again,
Yeah.
same drug, opposite effect. Some people are
Absolutely.
complaining of increased libido, some are decreased libido. Why the difference?
So body image, right? We drop 20, 30, 40 pounds. we feel good, we feel sexy again, our clothes are fitting better, maybe we want to wear that lingerie. So body image is huge.
Yes.
Confidence.
Body image has a lot to do with sexual
Absolutely.
satisfaction, for sure. And there's studies about that. I think we've done podcasts in the past, but we're going to have an upcoming podcast about that too, just talking how much that plays into sexual satisfaction for women. So again, I think better metabolic health, when you are regulating blood sugar, your metabolism is optimized, that you actually have more energy to work out. And I've had more people and then more energy for sex and a better sex drive. So I've had more people talk about that versus any kind of lowering of their sex drive.
Absolutely. So another part that is, I think it is a good part of the chatter online is the reduction in inflammation we're seeing with the GLP-1s. So when we reduce inflammation, our mood, our energy, our sexual function, everything gets a little bit better when we are functioning at our fullest potential.
Yes, no, absolutely. And so I think that when we're talking, there is like a lot on peptides online.
Yes.
A lot. And so if you're on social media or on YouTube, which is my favorite, there's a lot of talk about peptides. And there's a lot of people potentially, that are just, it's a lot of information and it's confusing. And so when what we're seeing in our clinic and kind of where I think that the zone would be is that you have a patient or you're here and you want to be here, that we're using peptides as just an adjunct, like an additional agent to help you get there, but you're changing lifestyle habits. And so we can talk about some of those lifestyle habits that might positively affect libido and not negatively.
Absolutely.
Because again, a peptide, hormone optimization is key. You're here, you want to be here, you want to feel like yourself. Again, you want to look like yourself, you want to perform like yourself again. That's the goal, is that we're using things to help you get there, hormone optimization being the core, peptides being next level. That what are some things that, again, we recommend to our patients and that our patients do so that they are being optimized, and what can they do at home to help them get to that goal besides injections?
Peptides, what they can do while they're on this peptide.
Yes.
Such as increasing protein.
Correct. Yeah.
Weightlifting. Women, we need to be weightlifting. Men seem to automatically pick up those weights where women don't want to get bulky or look like a man. You're not going to get bulky. Weightlift. We need weightlifting. Supplementation, a good multivitamin. When we're on these peptides, if we're not getting the micronutrients that we need, we can see hair loss. So making sure we're getting our micronutrients, making sure we're still eating a good variety of food. Those are key on these peptides. We shouldn't be losing weight because we are starving ourselves. We shouldn't be on a dose where when you open the fridge, nothing looks good or you have food aversion.
Correct, yeah.
So your dosing doesn't always necessarily just need to escalate up. Sometimes it needs to go backwards. It needs to pull back.
Yeah.
So those are big things that we educate our patients on so that they can be successful on this and feel good and improve overall how they feel and their hormones.
Yeah. So I think that you hit the big one. Again, muscle is important. So protein intake is another thing we talk about, is that at least a 1 gram per pound of protein on a daily basis. And we've done previous videos on that. I did a solo on that walked through protein and what it would be in practical terms to hit that goal. And then resistance training is so important as we get older and our hormones are declining. Like you said, the under eating, you obviously, if your appetite is so suppressed that you can't take in enough protein, then you're on the wrong dose. And these are just little adjuncts we're using to help you get there. So working out at home, resistance training, making sure you're eating enough protein.
Supporting hormones if needed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. You can be doing all of this, but if your hormones are not properly supported or optimized, you're going to see some of these losses and you may have some of these changes in libido, and we're blaming the wrong reason.
Yeah, so I think that red flags that number one, lots of information out there, and it's an information overload. It's noise, and it's good to be educated, but when you're getting such conflicting and so many people talking about it, and probably not even credentialed to talk about it, that are then on popular podcasts talking about it. So I would just say, get the information online, get the information on social media. Now you're aware. Now find a provider that specializes in hormones and peptides, and make sure that you go to somebody that you trust to manage your peptides. If you're online, you're doing it, black market ordering, then all bets are off. Then, I suggest you don't do that.
Of course.
Or nothing that we say.
To me, even as you say that,
yeah.
that just seems like
Yes.
common sense.
Yes, but the bottom line is, if you are one of those doing that, then all bets are off. Like, we probably won't be able to correct if you don't see the value of being managed correctly, or if you start to notice things and you think you're managed correctly. Things and red flags would be you don't have a libido.
Yes.
That would be one of the red flags.
Absolutely.
So you need to find somebody else or address it with that provider to make sure that's addressed.
Hair loss,
Yes.
sleep issues. That's another one.
Yeah. And if you don't have a desire for anything, like
Yeah.
if suddenly you have no desire in anything, you have no appetite.
If you've completely blunted that dopamine response,
Yes,
that should be something should go off that this is not right.
correct. And so I think those are red flags that you need to either see your provider more frequently so that you're monitored. Your dose is going to have to be cut back. If that's a conventional product that can't really be cut back easily, then again, finding somebody that specializes in hormone replacement, because they understand that that's the core and peptides are just part of it. Find somebody you trust. And again, we have lots of videos online that talk about lots of different things. But I'd just say that if patients don't feel like themselves, number one, that's time to get your hormones checked. But if you don't feel like yourself or you feel worse on a peptide, then it's probably time to get that readdressed as well. So
Absolutely. And another red flag that's a little bit harder to discern for women, depending on if they're perimenopausal, menopausal, would be like cycle dysfunction. And that's not really necessarily, where it can be hormones. It can also be from rapid fat loss. So as women, we need a little bit of fat on our bodies to support our cycle. We need a little bit of estrogen stored in the fat. We need a little bit that's appropriate. We shouldn't be in single digits for our body fat percentage. Like, men can sustain that a little bit healthier. So if we're having very quick, very rapid weight loss, having cycle dysfunction when you've never had it before, that could also be a red flag. So slow, intentional weight loss is really important with these medications.
yeah, it's just a tool to getting from point A to point B, and then you have your lifestyle tools. But if anything doesn't feel right in the meantime, then that tool is not being used correctly, or you need other tools there. And so basically in practice, what we will say is that we started off with semaglutide as the main agent that we were using, because we weren't ever doing weight loss programs, and we still don't do weight loss programs. So somebody doesn't feel like themselves, they want to feel like themselves again. That's probably the most common reason people end up in front of us, and hormones are the key that we're evaluating to see if they need hormone optimization. And then we started adding semaglutide because that was what was being used at the time. That, I think, in practice, and what I saw was too fast, too old to be losing the weight at that
Yes.
speed, and there
And then
were
the side
adverse
effects.
effects with that. Yes.
Yeah,
So
a lot of them.
yeah, we had trouble doing semaglutide because of that, and so it wasn't effective for our patients. But then Tirzepatide has been highly effective for our patients, and we can actually use it at varying doses, and it depends on which one's right for the patient. Every patient is different. That's why everything is so variable, because it needs to be customized to you specifically. And so Tirzepatide, I think, works great, and I think it's going to have amazing pleomorphic effects that we find out, which are other effects that are positive. So it does regulate blood sugar, even if it doesn't highly suppress your appetite. Inflammation is decreased.
It's huge, yeah.
And so people feel better. The libido isn't lost, but also we're optimizing the entire picture. So
Yes. And I
So-
think that's key, is that peptides should be an adjunct too.
correct. Yes, it's next level hormone optimization being the first one if you need your hormones optimized. And then I think that find the provider that you trust. In practice, we are seeing great effects with Tirzepatide. looking forward to potentially trying, what's
Retatrutide.
I say the tri
Yes.
agent. They're always hard to pronounce, the tri agent. But for now, we're seeing great effects. I'm going to go ahead and at the end of this, we'll put up an image of a body composition and end body. And again, just an example of somebody in a 3-month period that lost, I think it was 20 pounds on this one. And it'll say on the upper right how many pounds you need to lose on that end body. And then you will see that it showed that change, but not hardly any of it. It was like a point, like less than 1% was actually muscle mass. And
So then true fat loss, preservation of muscle, still getting weight into a healthy range.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the goal is even to reduce, it'll show visceral fat. So reducing that visceral fat level,
Yes.
which is your higher risk factor.
And you'll be able to see that on this. And this is just one example of an end body and what we're seeing in practice. So just so you know that, like, again, find somebody that's actually has it in practice, just isn't out there providing noise and chatter, but actually is practicing. And what are they seeing? Because the ones that are actually practicing, I have seen them say the exact same things that we're saying about GLP-1. So hopefully this helps. I don't think it kills your libido. I think it improves it. And that's what we're seeing in practice.
Yeah, key takeaway. You can't starve your way to a healthy sex life.
Yes, no, correct. That's a great one-liner.
Yeah.
Did you get that from Marissa?
She is great at those, but no.
She's good at one-liners. Now Faraday is. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Listen, hit the subscribe button. A lot of people are listening and not subscribing, and I know you hear that on a lot of podcasts, but it does help grow the channel, helps us get the information out there. And let's start a conversation in the comments. So let us know your experience, any questions that you may have, any additional topics that you want us to cover. And just know that every other Monday right now, we are doing a men's room live, and we are doing a women's roundtable series as well. So we have both available. And so just tune in. If you subscribe, you will get notifications.
And we're really excited. Lots of good information.
Yes, absolutely. And I think just hearing, we've heard a lot of the men that watch the channel talk about the fact that they want to have, they want to know what we think about certain things. And so we just figured we'd get a roundtable of women that would actually just open it up. And so you
A
can
little
hear what women think.
uncensored Dr.
Yeah.
Durst in your life.
Yeah, and they're all different. It's uncensored all the way around. So, but anyhow, thank you for tuning in, and let's start that conversation in the comments.